So my name is Yuyan Han. So I'm teaching 3 different courses. The first course I'm teaching is Bio 245, Introductory of Anatomy and Physiology. And this is the one that I'm converting to the open education resources. And then the other 2 is undergraduate classes, 541 Advanced Anatomy and 536 Epigenetics and Disease. And actually both of these classes I don't have a chart book for the students. So I heard about OER about 5 years ago. So when I first entered UNC as an assistant professor, and I was trying to shopping around for the textbook for my 245 classes, and but at the beginning, when I just shopping around, I found the OER book that time, and I take a quick glimpse, and it was not a good impression, to be honest, in the beginning. Because I didn't see like the organization is as I expected, and then the illustration was not as fancy as the previous book I'm using. So I just put it aside. But then it got my attention again when one of the PhD students was doing supervised teaching, and then she actually used the OER book, and then that kind of made me think, oh, can I do it for the long term? Yeah, that's how we get into that. So as I'm teaching, as the teaching goes, I see a trend that students getting financial difficulties of buying books. That actually significantly influenced students' learning process. A lot of students, after the trial expired, and they stopped working on assignments, which is, kind of a problem for me to thinking about how students are struggling. And then, as I mentioned, after one of the supervised teaching that I supervised, I found out that the OER books actually didn't have a huge negative impact to the students. So, and then the third one, the tricky point, is that the OER grant announcement makes me feel like, okay, so it looks like a trend. I probably should look back and then see how the OER book look like. And when I go back and then look at the website, and I found that the resources has been much improved when I first found out 5 years ago. So converting course, since now I already converted, and when I look back, I feel like it's a long journey. It's not like a one semester thing. So, and when I try to pick up the OER book, and I try to find the one that most people use, and the more mature ones, the more, and I also, because I'm using an electric learning system for the students, and I want to, first of all, making sure that the learning system is matching with the book. So all these factors make me make the decision that, I choose the book that are mostly well developed. And then, to be honest, converting to the OER book, OER resources is not easy. You have a lot of factors you have to think about. First of all, my class is heavily learning objective oriented, and I want to make sure that my teaching is effective and is aligned with the learning objectives, and that learning objective was strictly aligned with the previous book. So that makes me a little bit reluctant to convert at the beginning, because that means I have to redo all these learning objectives, and I also have to reshop for the learning system for the students. And in education, there's a concept called metacognition, and which means that the students they learn better if they know what they don't know and what they know. So the learning management system actually helps with that. So if we convert that, I also want to find a comparable learning management system that with the previous one. So that is also one of my thinking points when I'm considering that. So after I converted to the OER, I feel more like freedom for using all kinds of resources. And also I feel less guilty to use just one book because, when I use the commercial book, student pays a lot for that book. And I feel like I'm obligated to use that book. But now, if I convert it to OER, I don't have to anchored with that one book. And I can have that freedom to find all those free accessible resources, videos, and all other materials or case studies, and then implement it into my teaching. It makes it more accessible for different kinds of learnings, learning habits. So I think the most impactful part is that students, both students and I, feel more freedom and flexible. So right now, they don't have to worry about buying the expensive book. And second is I also have more freedom, and that freedom is long-lasting. And I can change semester by semester of what can be incorporated into my teaching. I think yes, and the impact is pretty positive. First of all, they don't have to worry about paying the book, and they're still getting pretty similar learning experience. And I found a pretty, economic cheap learning platform for them. So they are having the same learning experience, and by using a cheaper learning experience, learning platform, and they can actually adapt it in a quicker way. So they can adapt to the pace of my class much earlier and get most out of this learning management system. And their learning is more effective because I can provide more and flexible, different type of resources to them. So for the traditional course material, it's like the commercial publisher already set up everything for you. And for one way, you don't have to worry about the copyrights, right? Everything you use is there from their side. But on the other side, you have less freedom. You stick to this book. So after I convert it, I feel like I have to pay more attention to the copyright issues. And everything that I share, I have to make sure that is free access, and I didn't, share anything that is from the commercial side. So, and second is that a traditional book, as I mentioned previously, it is more fancy, using more fancy imaging, and their animation is more like vivid, However, we can find pretty broader resources for similar videos. So all we need to do is we do need to spend some time to go around and find those videos for students, and because the book will not provide all-in-one resources for us. So while I'm using the OER book, I feel like there's a lot of improvement one can do, and I'm glad this is open resources, and hopefully we have like an open platform that all the faculties can contribute to improving the OER, or maybe create our own version of the OER book based on the available OER book, which also takes time. And so hopefully, I know that university really encourage OER grant, but so far I know that OER grant only encourage who wants to convert the traditional course to the OER course. But I hope that the OER grant can also open to the existing OER resources, so we can continue improving. As I mentioned, it's not a one semester thing, and it takes time for us to polish it. And another thing is I do want to share that I really appreciate that we have this OER grant there for us to have the opportunities to look into it, and then to convert the material so that students can feel like more inclusive and more like equity in the book, and then the financial burden will not be their problem. So first of all, I would say be open-minded. First of all, you have to except that OER can do as good as the traditional material. And second is shop around if we have like multiple OER resources and try to check if they have a matched learning system, if they have like faculty OER community. That there's a lot of most of the time there's a free OER community that you can go to and then find out that the other faculties already share quite a bit of resources with you. And this type of book is usually more mature, and this is one thing that you also need to consider about. And also the third suggestion is for whoever want to convert, never think this is a one semester thing. It's going to be an ongoing thing, and never try to get everything set up and then start the OER. You should start when the essential components, which I believe is the learning objectives. And if you're using the e-learning systems, and then try to get that ready, and then once you get those essential items ready, and you can go ahead and use the OER. And all other things we can polish at like following semesters.